Sanda announced, we have here three pretty much legends of the esports and gaming space. Georgia is involved not only with HLTV but with eSport Adria. She's their writer. Brain. She's the brain of Esports Adria. I don't know, Phlegma, how this works, but let's say if she's the brain, then you're what? The muscle? Okay, he's the heart and the muscle. All right. Damir Rukavina, last name J. Rukavina, is the legendary news author of former magazine called Hacker, the magazine I grew up on. And to be honest, it's a huge honor being in his presence here. A little tidbit of information: when I met Damir Đurović, I was starstruck, and I was the head of marketing for Nanobit. He asked me for sponsorship money for Reboot, and I was thinking to myself, whatever you want, you're gonna get. I mean, you're the guy I grew up reading your articles, so you're part of that group as well, the original Hacker
group. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you very much for attending. And Hrvoje Marjanović said he is the columnist and author of index.hr articles in regards to pop culture, gaming, and everything else in between, but a hardcore gaming fan and a less known rap artist as well. Well,
thank you.
Welcome. Yo. So yeah, these were very short introductions. I would like to ask all of you to, like, in 3 sentences, just maybe a bit broadly introduce yourself and just communicate your favorite game to the audience so they get a better understanding of who you are. Georgia?
My mic. Hello. As Nicola already mentioned, my name is Đurđica, but I prefer to be called Rain because that's what I'm known in the esports and gaming community. My favorite game, I must say probably Might and Magic 7 for Blood and Honor. And no, it's not the Heroes version, so not Heroes, so Might and Magic. And the game I play mostly these days is League of Legends, but I play it mostly like smashing the keyboard, so that's my dark side.
Hello everybody, my name is Damir Rukavina. I work at T-Portal at the tech section. My favorite game, well, there are many, but probably the best in recent years was Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. I think that game surpassed many of the prequels and is pretty good. Yeah, I recently finished Dredge, so that's one off the checklist. And yeah, I keep delving into the indie genre along with, a lot of AAA stuff. So that's my job, and I kind of like it.
Thank you. Seth?
Yeah. So my name is Hrvoje, and let's talk about the favorite game. Like in the last few years, I would say it was Hades. I don't know any other game I played more than Hades, and in the last in a month or so, I played Fallout 4 again because there's a DLC or some update that was some graphical upgrades there, a few missions and stuff like that, and of course Dave the Diver. But let's get back to the real thing. It's Hades and now Hades 2. There's a early access Hades 2 now out there, so I'm playing that.
Hades 2 kicks ass.
Yep.
Looking forward to testing.
Short review, yes. It's 10 out of 10.
Looking forward to testing, definitely. Thank you guys for introducing yourselves. Let me start with Damir. You were part of the legendary Hacker crew in the 90s. How was growing up with gaming in the 90s, and how did the news business / gaming business evolve through the 90s onwards?
Yeah, well, first of all, the way it influenced me is by being an extension of actually what I was. I started playing video games when I was 4 years old, so getting into teenage years and getting a chance to do something big like work for an actual publication was a dream come true. Everybody would want that, at least gamers would, I think. And I was good at it, apparently, and I really enjoyed it. But the thing that I like the most about it is feeling of contributing to something that is awesome and seeing your written word in a publication. It's different to like perceive things like this in the modern digital landscape. But back then the internet was at its infancy. You could only have like the most you could get out of good multiplayer session were LAN parties, and those were awesome. I remember the after work hours. We used to stay after 8 on Fridays and play like Duke Nukem and Command and Conquer till 6 a.m. and at the Saturdays. It was awesome, and that and the camaraderie with my colleagues, because we were most of us were out 17, 16 when we started. It was part activism, part job, and it turned into a job. Yeah.
Now, what's your core memory from that time? What's burned into your skull?
Oh God, carrying my articles on diskettes, because we didn't have the modem. The files were too big. The screenshots were too big. So you like typed the Word file, you put it on the disk, and pray to your gods that when you come to the office, it doesn't have bad sectors. You'd have to go back home, copy it again, and you'd probably be bringing it on a deadline. So you'll have like 2 or 3 days to finish it, or maybe 2 or 3 hours. The editor is shouting at you, when is the text going to be finished? And, I remember Damir being really, really aggressive on the phone. Those were, I remember that. And of course, the LAN parties were awesome.
Yeah, those were the best. And just one more piece of information. You were known, until today, actually, for a very, very legendary review of a game called StarCraft.
Yeah.
For the younger people in the audience, can you explain why you are very known for that exact review?
Yeah, back when StarCraft came out, my editor decided I was the perfect person to write a review for it, and I accepted. I played a lot of real-time strategy games at the time, and I was like, I was hooked on Dune 2 and everything that came after it, and which became the most formative part of the real-time strategy history. Games that were refining the genre and making it better. So when StarCraft came out, it had a long trail of games that tried to be a better Dune 2 before it. So when I played it, I actually thought, well, this looks refined. This is really awesome, but I've seen it many times before. There's nothing fundamentally new in it, but it's good, and it's got a great multiplayer mode, and I think people are gonna like it. And I gave it an 8 out of 10. People disagreed with that, but probably because they wanted confirmation, of what their thoughts about the game was in compared to somebody's opinion. So yeah, and as a side note, I actually had spent a lot of time when I was working at Hacker talking to the other authors to have a standardized scoring, because we had like 1 to 100, but everybody perceived 80 as something else. I said like 80 is a really good game, but you can't have a perfect game, so you give it an 8. Many people said Doom is a 100% game. I would never give Doom a 100%. It's one of the formative games of the FPS genre, but I would never in my life give it a 100%. Yeah.
Understandable. And players kind of resented you for giving StarCraft, I think, an 82% score.
80.
So 80. Yeah. So that kind of dragged down for the better part of the past 25 years, that he's the bad guy because he gave StarCraft a better review.
Yeah, it's the best conversation starter. I think I wouldn't be here if it weren't for StarCraft.
Yeah, I see it on Reddit every now and then.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's switch over to Đurđica. Rain, I'm sorry. So you're both an author for Esports Adria and for HLTV. HLTV, whoever doesn't know, is like the top-rated media outlet for CS, now CS2, but previously CSGO results and articles, and very well read. And they've sold, I think, 2 years ago for 25 million, something like that, which is crazy when you think it was only like a blog for Counter-Strike, like a passion project. Something like Esports Adria, which Phlegma is going to sell for 20+ million very soon. So remember me when that happens, please. So Đurđica, with having both of those experiences in mind, you're writing basically for the local, regional, and worldwide level. How does your experience differ in writing one or the other, and for writing for local, regional, and worldwide events?
Okay, first of all, you gave StarCraft an 80. We're going to talk about it. So I'm an optimist. I would say I have best of both worlds, so looking at the regional and the global scene. And I like to say that we are moving in a great direction following the global scene, but at the same time, if we look at it realistically, I think we're actually moving at a snail's pace. So there is still stigma on, like I like to say, Balkan region, but actually on the whole Adriatic region. like traditional sport like football and handball is still mostly prevalent in the media, so esports gets a lot less coverage. So if you're not doing something for tier 1 or tier 2 scene, actually you're not going to be mentioned in the media. That's like regarding HLTV, that's what I like, because by focusing on tier 1 and tier 2 scene, we get the best of regional global Counter-Strike. And I would really like to do that one day on, oh my God, my English sucks today, so I'm sorry. I would really like to do that one day on a regional level.
Okay, and I mean, for English, just pretend we're on Discord and you can mute everyone else, so it's fine. So in your experience, I mean, you've seen a bunch of local, regional, and worldwide events and matches. Is there anything we locally do better, or maybe in a better way than worldwide organizations, tournaments, events, matches?
Well, actually, the thing I like is that when we're doing local tournaments and local matches, we are like a small family. So there is a lot less people working on those events. We get to know each other. We hang out all the time. We have some kind of flow that works perfectly. And when I attend the like tier 1 tournaments, it lacks. So I really like the community that brings people together on the smaller events.
So you would say that maybe the bigger events are more industrialized and standardized.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
It's like everything is job, everything is money, like tier 1 scene.
And the smaller ones are mostly like.
Yeah, because most of the time, so like when you look at the, I don't know, for example, tier 3 scene, prize pools are not that great. Tournament organization doesn't get that much money to pay the staff. So when you're doing it for yourself, for heart, for the community, and you can feel it. When you get to the like tier 1 scene, people are more in it for the prize pool, for the showbiz, for the gala, for the glam. Yeah.
Okay, so there's a definite difference. All right, so let's switch over to Hrvoje. So for, I mean, most of the people know you as Set 3000 from the group Krankschwester, which is like you said yourself, a porno rap group, which is like a pretty general, description
Nobody
of
knows
it.
what the hell is
I mean, let's call a spade. I mean, let's call it what it is. And in your lyrics, sometimes you're pretty explicit, but then we have Slava as well, which is a
we have 3 songs where we don't curse.
Yeah, there's a few family-friendly songs as well.
Yes.
But in terms of if we're looking at the extremes and those lyrics, I really had such a hard time comprehending that guy who's writing and singing that stuff is also a hardcore gamer, which kind of represents the introverted, nerdy guy. Like how
I am.
How do these two worlds combine? And I told people like after I met you, like that guy's really smart. Like what the hell? And he's singing about like thongs and butts and stuff.
He is in the songs.
Like how did your history of gaming came to pass? How did you turn up as a gaming journalist?
It came up when Commodore 128 entered my life. Better yet, when it entered my brother's life. I got the glimpse of Commodore. I got the glimpse of those games whenever he let me to enter his room, and that was like one day a week maybe. So that was my introduction to gaming, and the first computer I had was Amiga 600, and that was basically my introduction to making music, because Amiga was like the first computer that I think it was Atari before that, but it had musical trackers, like the programs that are called trackers, which you make music in. So it was my introduction into music production, which was very instrumental in my first days of making music. I began in 2000. Like I bought a PC then, and I basically started making music in Fast Tracker. And it was my first musical program, which I learned and used for about 5 or maybe 10 years.
Did you release any songs on that program?
Yeah. Like first demo album I released was in 2000, and it was one of the first like I released the first physical copy of my album in 2006, but before that and after that it was mainly internet. It was forums and stuff like that. There was a site called H3S where they like released demo songs, and it was in MP3 files. And I released for that the first album, the second album, and the third album was basically my first official release for Aquarius Records, and it was first physical copy and the only physical copy of any album I ever made, because it was a bad experience all the way. So, but gaming was present through all these years, like from basically '86.
Let me double check if your mic works. Can you guys hear him?
Yeah.
Okay, just because I want to record everything he says.
Yes. To use it against me.
Yeah, just so when he releases a new song about thongs and butts, we can screenshot this as well.
Commodore man.
How did you start writing for like about video games? For the let's say the biggest. I mean, all medias are huge, but Index is like statistically one of the biggest.
Yeah.
I'm sure in the region. How did you start working for those guys and writing specifically about video games?
I'll try to shorten the story. Like in 2007 or 2008, I started writing for a site called ides.net.
I remember that.
Yeah, and I was basically the only guy writing for that site. And among the stuff I wrote about were the games also. And I wrote a blog for Index also. They had a blogger hired at that point. And Matija Babic noticed the things I wrote about, because it became, I don't know if I should say popular, because I don't know what the hell was popular on Blogger, or who read it, or what were the numbers, I don't remember. But he saw the articles, the blogs, and he contacted me and wanted for me to start to write for Index. And I began, but games weren't the stuff I wrote about that much for a large part of my writing career for them. And it is something that I kind of initiated myself, to get more articles about the gaming, about the industry, to get more reviews out there. And it was a big step, because like mainstream media isn't the place I personally search for when I want to read reviews, because mainstream media is basically the last place. But I think like in the future, in the long run, it could become the place, like the entry point for some readers. So that's like my personal mission on Index Hire.
And that's a really good intro to my next question, which is basically aimed towards all of you. So esports specifically is very strange to report on. I mean, I'm pretty sure Rain can agree. As on one hand, you don't get updates on, let's say, football or basketball. Like the rules stay the same for 100 years, nothing changes. And in terms of esports topics, meaning, I don't know, CS, League, Dota, whatever, every season you get new characters, new skins, new updates on the game, new optimizations, whatever they want to call them, I don't care. But it's very hard when you need to be updated both on the game and the actors within the competitive circles, so teams, matches, transfers, so on. Do you guys see that happening at any point on one of the mainstream portals in Croatia or the region, reporting on these types of topics, or just like Esport Adria and keep it specific?
Yeah, I think the esports are present in the modern mainstream media in Croatia, but not on the level many of the people interested in esports will probably be content about. The thing that I've noticed works the best are personal stories, talking about people who actually started their careers in Croatia as like in their mom's house and moved out to like play in the world circuit and whatever. Doesn't matter. The game itself isn't the subject in which people are interested. The thing they want to hear about is about somebody turning their gaming hobby into a career. And that's what, my media, the media for which I work for, covered the sports scene in many shapes and forms. But in my personal opinion, the best articles, the most successful ones at least, were interviews with the esports, either organizations or people who actually, like Perks, or, you actually gave me a contact and I managed to get to the guy and we talked about stuff he does. And when I talk to those people, I think the way I try to work for both sides is try to ask the talent or the athlete about the stuff he would probably want to talk about, and the questions he isn't asked every day, like, stuff like, what he does after the match. Did he find the last circuit stressful? Does he feel like he can go forward with this? And talking about the career and talking about the things that aren't specific, because although I would like to talk about, the very latest and greatest movements in esports, I think the public interest in that at this very moment isn't on the level to which the people who were interested would want to hear
and
about.
Also the problem is you have to stay relevant, because
Exactly.
it's marginally covered in mainstream media, and you want a place like mainstream media just isn't a place where fans of or followers of esport come for information. There's a lot of better places for it, dedicated places, and like mainstream portal usually doesn't have a dedicated group of people following just that, like they do when it comes to, I don't know, soccer or basketball or stuff like that. And it kind of becomes irrelevant in that sense, because I don't think it's impossible for it to be present one day, but it will take some time.
There should be a storyline, something people can connect with.
Yeah, they connect with the stories about the people. What he said, like they'll read if the article's headline is the dude was living in his mom's basement and now he makes $10 million playing video games. You have to make it that way, like a tabloid type of headline, because they're just not interested, because the main public, the main crowd that comes there. Yeah. Yes, it's the main crowd that comes there. They want something.
Understandable. Đurđica, for Rain, I'm sorry. For eSport Asia, do you require these storylines of Rex Riches or someone being really bad or really good and creating like, buzz around the topic, or is it just enough to write about tournaments and matches and teams?
So although we are specialized for esports, the articles that do basically reports of some tournaments or matches or look, Vitality won again, that is not read enough. So basically no clicks, even though like if you want to read something about esports in Croatia, you would probably stumble upon Esports Asia. We did a lot of interviews. We tried and aim to catch the players or teams or anybody who has any presence on the esports scene and has a background, not only from Croatia, but from whole Balkan region. And those get clicks. And I actually really like to write and to read those type of articles because it gets personal. So it's not always the same. It's not, oh, look, I stumbled upon the .esports or something and I just copy-pasted and translated the article. That's basic report, but you get to know the people personally.
Okay, in terms of now we've covered kind of what's the situation currently. Let's step it up into the future. We've had some instances in the previous years, especially post-COVID, with some novelty, technologies trying to implement themselves within gaming, AR, VR, crypto games, whatever that is, NFTs. You remember those? Who owns an NFT still? I don't. So also AI now, the newest things, NVIDIA pulled out like, I don't know, help bot within the game who watches you play your game and then instructs you what to do, which kind of takes out for me the illusion of being in the game. And these kind of novelties, how do you see those playing out in the future? Do you see a positive outlook for gaming and esports, or a less positive one?
I wouldn't make any predictions. I'm bad at predictions, but like when we talk about VR or AR, like the last case with Apple Vision showed us we aren't really interested in that technology. Like I cheer for VR. I love VR. I am hoping one day it will become something I want to use every day, but it isn't at this point. I have PSVR 2, and it's a great upgrade, like to the first PSVR. It's way better than it is, but it's not something I turn on like it's not weekly, it's not even monthly.
Is there any novelty you got hooked on? Like, did you buy NFTs?
I'm interested
install
in
crypto
AI.
games?
I'm interested in AI, but just in music. We live in this AI bubble. Everybody's talking about AI this, AI that, and it's mostly alarmist type of writing. Like people are scared of it. It will take our jobs. It's like basically the South Park episode. So people are just being massively scared of AI as something other than the tool it really is and it will become, because we have AI in music. It's a great novelty. It's a fun thing to do. It's fun to write few prompts and get a song out of it. But it's something that will be interested for a month maybe, and after that, those who will use it as a tool. And I think the same goes in gaming or something like that, because I see some people are very critical about I don't know, I can remember the game, the dudes that make Rick and Morty made a game High on Life or something like that, and they use AI to like put few posters on the wall or something like that, and everybody was so critical, so afraid of it. It's like stock footage, basically. You take pictures from Shutterstock or stuff like that. It's nothing more.
But on Shutterstock, the artist gets paid.
Yeah, yes. But there is a question about authorship, like the copyright, and you have that in music. You'll have that covered in gaming and everywhere. It's a fresh field, let's call it like that, and it will get regulated in some ways. Through the years.
Yeah.
Okay.
The as Hrvoje said, I think the music industry will be. Maybe it's subjective, but I think the music industry will be less impacted by the AI tidal wave, because there is a lot of money in that, and the publishing companies don't like their authors being ripped off. So if you happen to have a sample of, say, some popular artist in your AI generated thing, you'll get sued to shit. While as an artist doing, say, 2D art for video games, it's easy to scrape off your entire art station and use it to create the art that you trained 10 to 20 years to perfect. And that is the problem with the current art world. But let's not jump into that rabbit hole. I want to talk about games. For one thing, I'm very optimistic. I recently talked to great John Romero about the future of video games and the AI that we all talk about. And he said one very interesting thing. You can have like all the tools you want. You can have all the advancements of the easier learning when, you can make a game much easier now than you did like in the 90s. But if your game's crap, it'll be crap. It won't be sold. Nobody will play your game if your game isn't good. So the good game design is what will work, and that contributes to the current downfall. I mean, the trend of AAA games being mostly crap nowadays, and you have the advent of beautiful and innovative indie products and indie movements, and a lot of if you look at 2023 and 2024, we had Lethal Company, we had Hades a couple of years back. Now we have Hades 2. There's Abiotic Factor that came out recently and it's like crazy. We had Helldivers, which is well, it couldn't
defend democracy.
Yeah, you can't call it indie because it's like, it's a big studio backed up by Sony, but it doesn't matter. These games are good.
It's in the mentality.
Yeah, it's the mentality what matters. And what I'm saying is, I think it pays off to be optimistic about gaming because I think we'll see a lot of innovative and beautiful games during the next months and years.
Okay, prior to questions, I'm gonna try to beat the optimism out of you with the next question. It's kind of ironic that in the period where games are gaining in popularity, there's pre-COVID, post-COVID. So during COVID, everyone learned about games. It started being cool, blah, blah, whatever. And it started growing tremendously, and the market kind of saturated, and big companies bought out all the small indie studios and so on and so on. So in this age of games gaining huge popularity, someone even said that they're bigger than sports and, movies combined. Yeah, music and movie industry are smaller together than video games. Yeah, this is just something which is said like in every article, so it's super funny to say it here. But in these times of huge uprise in gaming popularity, we see a downfall in gaming events like E3, like BlizzCon, like all of these, just physical events being shut down, GDC as well, being smaller and smaller. I've been to GDC last year, and it's only crypto stuff. Like no publishers go there anymore.
Gaming industry is exactly what it says. It's gaming industry. It's making money off video games. It's you have games like the Mobile Monopoly, which is like you can read all about it and look all about it in YouTube. It's one of the worst monetization schemes ever because all they want to do is hook people to spend on microtransactions.
But my question is, how do you see the future? First, you, Rain. How do you see the future of gaming media and gaming events going onwards when we see a downfall of offline events, but the upwards trajectory of games being more popular?
So there is definitely a problem with the networking because on those kinds of events you can meet people who you can potentially have business partners and future projects with. Also, there is a loss of hype because when you meet on these kind of events, the community is hyped. They want to see it, want to see new stuff. You have those big things happening for the gaming industry. But also on the positive note, I think it's a good thing because then when you don't have those kind of big events like BlizzCon or similar, you get more regular updates which are shared with the community online, and you kind of have the hybrid media which combines the physical and online presence to share the new stuff with the public.
Bravo. Okay, very nice, thank you.
Yeah, because when you watch what is happening, you see that more and more like PlayStation has its own presentations, exactly. Xbox has its own presentations. It's getting more niched. Like you don't have a need for a big event because you have 10 little events in half a year. Nintendo has its own events, and some of it is online, some of it is just like news or some updates you get, and I think like that is just the sign of the time. Like companies need their own events where, I don't know, Sony has its own event where Microsoft doesn't come with their own stuff and takes the attention of people from the games they want to present there. So I think like the way where it's going, I think that is the most interesting to companies, I think, as an owner of a big company.
Yeah.
Understandable.
Yeah, big companies have more money than they ever had before. You have big publishers being able to organize these events, and these events are generally cheaper. So they took their own E3 with blackjack and hookers. So yeah, it's basically that. They have enough money to make events like that possible, where they focus on their own product and they can isolate everybody else. We're not talking about Bethesda. We're talking about Sony now, and vice versa. We're talking about Microsoft. And I believe the in-person events like E3 were great back in the physical media era, where you had to pump up the game for the holidays in order for parents to buy them for their children, because big release dates were usually in December and November before like the holiday season, because digital distribution wasn't a thing. Nowadays you can like publish a game any time of the year, and it doesn't matter when it comes out. Yeah, sure, maybe it'll sell better at Christmas because mom will buy a Steam gift card for their kid, but you know what I'm talking about. The distribution has changed, and I think that influenced this trend the most, in my opinion.
Perfect.
When you see events like Game Awards, where you see like big actors coming up and overshadowing the games they present there, you kind of get a bad feeling about big event like a concept, and you see it's like a feeling of shame on behalf of gaming industry, where the big actor is more important. We'll give him more space than we'll give a few games that are basically what are we there about, the games or the Al Pacino coming up and just stumbling through words and saying, oh, I don't know, this is coming out and stuff like that. Because and I think the big events are like a thing of the past.
Okay,
maybe.
but I mean, media stays, games stay, they get an upwards trajectory, so we're still positive about the outcome. So at this point, I would like to stop this part of the panel, and please a big applause for our guests here. Do we have time for Q&A? Perfect. So the audience, feel free to ask our guests anything you like, appropriate, inappropriate. It's all fine. It's only being recorded for YouTube. And we have a question down there and here as well. 2, 3 questions. Okay.
Hi.
Let's get 4 questions.
Okay. First question
anyone
to the
else?
StarCraft person.
Oh my God.
Oh no.
He's the professor of game development, by the way.
Awesome.
Yeah, I'll have 2 short questions. Well, first one is, how did you survive after that review? So where did you hide? That is something I want to know.
I hid in the Himalayas for the first 2 years, then decided to come down when the climate changed.
Smart.
Melted all the snow, yeah.
I'll just say smart. Okay, the second question is, Baldur's Gate 3.
Yeah.
Okay, so do you see it as a phenomenon or something that game developer companies should strive to in the future, especially AAA, because they are not AAA and you didn't mention them?
I mean, Larian at this point should be considered a AAA company because they have a lot of people that actually work for them, and they have pretty high standards which they built up by making a lot of games before that. They have a great legacy of awesome games behind. Before Baldur's Gate 3. So Baldur's Gate 3 is by some means an extension of the original Sin series. I personally enjoyed it. I think it's wonderful, and it's wonderfully made. When I talked to Sven Vinke about 6-7 years ago, it's about when he talked about the interconnecting storylines and making multiplayer work in his games, I thought this guy was crazy, and he made it work. That it just goes to prove that if you have a talent and if you know what you're doing, you can do wonders. And as you said, as you asked, will this influence the AAA industry? They're shaking in their boots, and I like that. I think paying 70 euros for a game should warrant some effort to be put into things that actually matter, like gameplay and story. Should everybody strive to that? I don't know. It depends. But I think games like this should exist because it wakes up the big players. Yeah.
Next question.
Yeah, pretty much for anybody to answer. More of a question of placement of esports in the mainstream media. You talked about having big sports like football and handball and basketball being omnipresent, and little sports. For me, for example, I come from softball and baseball in Croatia, which is very unknown, and I think the same situation is pretty much with esports. How do you think, what would be a good approach to maybe get more of esports in the media, have it more available to the public, so the public knows more about that?
who is going to take this one?
Yeah, I'll give my little input from what I've experienced. It's usually the organizations that contact us regarding the events like you talked about. So the narrative goes like this: somebody contacts us, we talk about it, and then we arrange to make something that will be read. Because as we spoke before, if you have something that is conveyed through the event happened there, people who won, whatever. If the team isn't extra famous or the narrative isn't already present in the media, you can put that article on the front page and it'll just go down and nobody will read it. I don't think nobody wants that. I think what we need to do is to make the esports industry and events more approachable. How? I hope I know how, but I'm not sure if it works. I think all of us are doing our best to make it a thing, because I think esports are a good thing, and I think they have grown into an industry that is very respectable nowadays. Yeah, but it needs to grow, and in order to grow, we need to find new ways to communicate.
Yeah, when it becomes big enough, it will be by default. It will be on front pages by default. More people will come. More people will read about it. It's a thing that like esport industry will have to work on and make it more popular, and the media will be there to follow. Will follow it if people will read it, because the clicks are everything for us. The clicks are basically the editors of most of news portals in Croatia. Many won't admit that, but clicks will basically be the head person, basically head technology in every news portal.
A question for all of the panelists. What is your favorite article or piece of content that you've ever produced? Like, what are you most proud of in your career, basically?
Nice one.
For me, it's not out yet, but I'm currently, so follow Esport Adria. I'm currently working on a piece about female esports in Croatia, and it's directly linked to our first female CSGO team that will compete at the international tournament, so like ISCF. So for the first time, the World Championship has a female CSGO tournament, and we will have our representation. So, yay.
Although some might say, argue about which articles I'm most I guess famous for or infamous. My favorite articles were the ones where I got the chance to talk to people who actually made this industry great. I talked to a lot of big people like John Romero and Tim Schafer and Sven Vinke and people like that who actually were in the 90s prominent designers and programmers who brought the gaming industry to the level it is today. And seeing their perspective on the work and the legacy they gave is something that really fulfills me. I actually sometimes go back to those interviews to remind myself what to ask them next time I see them, because I don't know when will it be, and I feel they have a lot of stuff to talk about and interesting things to show to the public.
I'll talk about the reviews, like the ones that are favorite to me are the ones when I find a game that I'm passionate about. It was The Last of Us Part 2 for me, because when it came out, I saw the reactions to it, and they were mostly negative. The people hated the quote woke ideas that were implemented in the game and stuff like that, but I really saw something happening with the narrative when they didn't do fan service, which I consider very brave for a AAA game of that size, of that scope. And to see them just saying, no, We won't do what the fans are expecting from us. We'll do what we believe it's best for the story. And that bravery isn't that big when you talk about an indie studio that's making a game nobody knows what to expect from. But when you have a potential franchise at that point, when you have a really cult game, a really famous game, really successful game, and when you decide to do your own thing, it was something I really respected, and like making a review about that was very dear to me. And when you asked the question, like the first article that came to mind was the Last of Us Part 2 review.
How do you see the role of, let's say, specialized esports / game dev industry media in bringing those industries to the public eye? For example, HLTV is a great example, but on a global scale, maybe a local regional one like Esport Adria. Do you, for example, as from a perspective of the portal Index Her, look to, let's say, transfer those news to your portal, or maybe just to give some attention to you to make a deeper dive into it?
So the main problem in our region is that we have a very few players that are playing on a really high level. So basically you're just stuck with some semi-pro or basically amateur teams and players who are playing small tournaments. And when you try to cover this kind of tournaments and some kind of small success story, nobody is really interested. When we write about perks or maybe like guys from G2, Nico, Hunter, Nexa, everybody's gonna read that, everybody loves them, that's cool, but we cannot write about them all the time. So basically, we do not have scene strong enough to have a good coverage like HLTV has.
Yeah, what River said, I completely agree with everything. It is that unfortunately the media scene regarding to esports in Croatia, in my opinion, is centered around this, around the persona and not the events. We have covered events. I'm not saying that those aren't covered, but they aren't like they cannot be compared to the interviews that and introspectives into the lives of these people. Unfortunately, the tabloid rules all and it's what attracts the viewers the most, because let me put it simply. If you have an interview with a celebrity esports player, you're gonna have views from people that actually follow this guy and actually follow the esport. And then you're gonna have people who, hey, this guy made a lot of money and he's like really famous and he's from Croatia and I'm gonna read about it. And then the click goes up by 1. And you have to have like 10,000 of those to be successful and to have an incentive to go forward with the narrative. The interviews, in my opinion, work the best. Coverage of great game events also work, but day-to-day reporting on esports in mainstream media, it will just be a little bit, unread, I think. But I may be wrong. I don't know the statistics 100%, but I think it has potential, but not at this time.
There's also a thing that I touched on. It's I, as a gamer, don't go to mainstream portals to read about the gaming. Like the mainstream media, we first have to attract the gamer back to it, because we're very specific. Like, we love games all of our lives, and we believe we know something about games, and when we see mainstream media covering it very shallow, very uninterested in the game they're covering, you kind of search for a more specialized media for it. Like as time passed on, I really don't go to IGN or GameSpot to read anything else except the news. Like, when I want to see a deep dive, a great review, I go to Digital Foundry. So I went from not reading mainstream media to not reading specialized media regarding reviews to go to Digital Foundry, basically the only place where I want to see, where I know I'll see a great review of a game, where I won't see this like don't know how to describe it, like a casual review of something. And I don't say IGN or GameSpot don't have content like that. They have great reviews, but through the years they kind of lost me. And for mainstream media to be relevant, especially in esports, I think there's a long way to go. It's an uphill battle. You have to have a dedicated team of journalists covering it, and mainstream media has to become relevant. And I think it's hard for news portal to do that, and it's hard for gamers to go to mainstream media. It's a tricky question, and it's a tricky thing to do.